So I want to get into a lot of the stuff that you're up to, and that's going to be most of our conversation today. But first, a little bit of breaking news. So this happened, or it is happening. The Department of Justice designates New York City as an anarchist jurisdiction. Now, Rodolfo, I got to be honest with you, buddy. When I first saw this, I actually got excited because I thought anarchist jurisdiction meant they were just going to try mutualist anarchy in all these places and open up public banks. That's what I thought it meant. And I got really excited. I was like, I guess I got to move somewhere where this is going on. But it turns out, bad news, that's not what this means. Spoiler alert. Here's what it really means. Let's go to the article here. The Justice Department designated New York City, Portland, and Seattle as anarchist jurisdictions under guidelines issued by President Trump earlier this month. What does that mean? Trump's September 2nd memo directs federal agencies to minimize funding for designated cities. Federal grants account for billions of dollars in New York City's annual budget, and the city has threatened to sue over any move to defund it. So New York City is one of three places that, quote, have permitted violence and destruction of property to persist and have refused to undertake reasonable measures to counteract criminal activities, leading to its designation as an anarchist jurisdiction, the Justice Department said on Monday. So they're going to try to take money away from all these places. That's essentially what they're trying to do. Wow.
Yeah. We've grown to expect a lot of horrors, obviously, from the Trump administration. But, this and we should, of course, mention that, of course, the other so-called opposition party is also implicated here, right? Because, of course, the Democratic Party is the one that funds all of his departments that mete out all this terror against the people. So this is happening, it seems, because clearly they can tell that the population is not okay with what has been going on with police brutality. So this is really them trying to harass us and make us submit into oblivion so that we don't call them out for the horror violations of human rights that they're clearly engaging in, even anti-constitutional engagement. So.
Well, it's just amazing. You bring up how this is a bipartisan effort. Donald Trump, it's like he just learned the word anarchist 2 weeks ago. Like he learned the word anarchist and he loves using it now. Everybody who has a problem with him is an anarchist. Everybody who's protesting for human rights is an anarchist, quote unquote. Who were anarchists really? Well, you and I both know anarchists were all the people writing years ago and warning of ever creating something like Wall Street. That's what anarchists actually are. They warned against ever creating something like Wall Street, among other things. And there's many different variations of anarchy. I always say, Rodolfo, anarchy is a lot like ice cream. You're bound to find a flavor you like. But it's true. Yeah. That's a very niche joke. That's a very niche joke. It's not for everybody, but it is true. But so going on your point that you brought up about how, Democrats are very complicit in this too, and they're helping. Democrats had an opportunity from a messaging standpoint when you see mass historic unrest of almost unseen proportions in this country, at least in contemporary American society, huge amounts. Instead of really siding with the people and being a little bit better than everybody I don't like is an anarchist, even though I don't even know what that means, what did Democrats do? They parroted it. They said the same stuff. Joe Biden said the same stuff. Nancy Pelosi said similar stuff. They're like, oh, yeah, the looters and anarchists, we're not for that. Instead of saying, you can't, you certainly can't paint a broad brushstroke on everybody who's out protesting, because most people are just protesting these horrific actions of police, and that needs to end. And we need to start solving this systemic problem. And people want human rights and people want an end to police brutality. And instead, they just parroted. So now you have actual, quote unquote, anarchist jurisdictions, which is such an absurd Orwellian level designation.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, the Democratic Party is really great at following along, falling in line with the Republican Party. We can see this in a whole variety of policies that they've instituted for decades. And in this particular situation, of course, the Democrats have been the party of a national security intelligence complex. They're the ones that recently reauthorized the Patriot Act and have also goaded Trump on cracking down on really what is the more left-oriented segment of the population, which of course the Democrats are claiming to represent, and they get a lot of good PR from pretending that they actually stand up for the policies that the people actually want. These are the most left-oriented policies, such as reform of the police, or even the whole rethinking of what the police could be. But of course, we can see time and time again, up until, as you said, the comments that Pelosi made and many other Democratic city mayors have actually said. That's something perhaps we should talk about. Trump is saying these are cities run by Democrats, but in fact, well, of course they're run by Democrats overwhelmingly. But the point is that these Democratic mayors and city councils are the ones that are funding these local police forces that then engage in these activities against peaceful protesters. So increasingly, the people, I think, are getting fed up with this hypocritical situation. So it's very clear that both parties do not serve the people. Instead, they serve the ruling class.
So let's just get back to the article for a little bit before we put a period on it. So here's what New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, great guy.
Right, you got to vote for him.
Big fan. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo minced no words in responding to the DOJ assessment. So here's what he had to say about it. I understand the politics, but when you try to manipulate and distort government agencies to play politics, which is what the Trump administration has done from day one, this is more of the same. The president can't supersede the law and say, I'm going to make those funds basically discretionary funds, which is what he would have to do. If they actually do this, we will challenge it legally and they will lose once again. So basically, if they try to enforce any of this, there's going to be a lot of legal repercussions, and we'll see what happens. It looks like something that would be very difficult for the Trump administration to enforce, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, one hopes, of course, the courts have sided with Trump in various locations, and at various times there's issues, not all, but the court system is not set up to protect the people. It's set up to protect particular private interests. So we'll have to see. And I think the important thing is that the people are very active and are no longer willing to tolerate this abuse from the government.
Do you think Trump's going to get a Supreme Court pick in before November?
Well, I think that the Democrats are unlikely to put up much of a fight in the Senate. And it's very clear that Mitch McConnell and Trump certainly do not particularly care to make it seem that they care about hearing out what the people have to say through the election. So I personally, on a personal level, I expect we already know there's going to be some nominations coming this week. So the Republicans can move very fast, and the Democrats can move very fast even to support the Republicans. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, it's amazing when they can move fast versus when they somehow can't move at all. Isn't that interesting? Isn't it interesting that they couldn't? We're not going to see another stimulus bill, by the way. We're not going to see one. It's over. And by the way, because of Democrats' complete inability to negotiate at all, you lost an extra $600. We got $600 less because they wouldn't call Steve Mnuchin's bluff and force him to extend it that week while they try to figure out something long term. They just folded on that too. So we got even less because of Republicans' brutality and because of Democrats' ineffectiveness, which that's bipartisanship. The Democrats are only allowed to be as ineffective as they are because of how brutal Republicans are, and Republicans can only be as brutal as they are because of how ineffective Democrats are. And then they rely on your amnesia to continue the cycle. These people, they're completely ineffective. I'm going to take a chance on these other guys. Yeah, but they're really brutal. I don't remember much of that anymore. These guys are really brutal. I'm going to take a chance on these other. Yeah, but they're totally ineffective. Well, let's see if that changes. And the cycle continues.
Absolutely. Yeah. This voting for the lesser evil strategy that has been put out for decades. It's just certainly has not worked out for the people. And now we've gotten to a point where the Democratic Party is certainly, it's not a left party. It's a center-right party.
See, I think center-right's too generous. I really do. Like I think it is a right-wing party. I mean, anywhere else, what other country, like similar democratic experiment, quote unquote, country, would it be considered even a center-right party?
That's a fair point. Yes, exactly.
I mean, it's a right-wing party.
Yeah, I mean, in the context of the United States traditional politics, unfortunately, as a country, we are tethered by the institutions that are in place and the organizations that hold those institutions, such as the Democratic and Republican parties,
right,
who have steadfastly moved to the right for decades, especially even though, of course, the Republican Party, right? Some people say the Republican Party has essentially gone so far to the right, they've just gone off the cliff. And that's where the Democrats have unfortunately been taking their own party. And so therefore, we, the people, are suffering the consequences.
Well, on what planet? Well, obviously this planet and in the United States. But I mean, how ridiculous is it that Colin Powell and John Kasich were part of the organization that is the alternative to the conservative option? I mean, it's just beyond comprehension. Like you cannot pitch this as a TV series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it speaks to the role of of the system itself, of the capitalist system, money in politics. That has meant that the biggest fish keep eating up all the smaller fish, and then just making ruling in the way that they want to be ruling. So the biggest donors to the Republican and the Democratic Party have bought both up. And that has meant that, people like Colin Powell, who, of course, stand for the military-industrial complex. Well, the military-industrial complex, if it seeks to survive, it has to recruit from the, quote, left-wing opposition provided by the fake opposition of the Democrats. So, yeah, it's a really toxic, unfortunate situation that we've now entered, where clearly both parties represent toxic options for the people.
So one thing I want to add is when I tweeted out the Anarchist jurisdiction article, Edwin over on Twitter asked, what would be an Anarchist jurisdiction playlist for Music Monday? Which, I mean, we got to focus on the important questions, Rodolfo. We really do. And somebody tweeted, shout out to the person who tweeted a playlist of a bunch of anarchist Italian music. I'm going to be diving into that. I am insanely curious. I don't even know if it's punk rock or or if it's folk or what exactly it is, but Italian anarchist music, I am so in. So shout out to the person who tweeted that. That's for here. Let me properly.
The revolution needs music.
Well, Emma Goldman, right? Any revolution without dancing is a revolution I have no interest in. Isn't that? That was her, right?
Right.
It was something like that. It's not. Isn't she the one who actually said? Everybody attributes that if voting mattered, they wouldn't let you do it. You know that quote, that famous quote. Right. Everyone attributes that to Mark Twain, but I don't think Mark Twain ever actually said that. I think apparently it was Emma Goldman who said that. Have you heard that?
I've heard the quote. I'm not sure who said it, but it's absolutely true. How are we going to take down the master's house with the master's tools? It doesn't quite make sense.
Right.
Of course, there are so many ways by which elections are rigged. Certainly in the United States, we know about all of these. Especially they came to the forefront in 2016. So, I think as socialists, we participate in elections so that we can get out some issues, and it's important to participate. Socialist parties participate in elections around the world. However, elections in the United States are clearly an institution that reproduces the power of the ruling class time and time again.
Well, I think a big problem too is we are taught the way we prioritize voting in our country is beyond backwards, where, we're taught that presidential is the biggest thing. And if you don't vote in a presidential, you have, quote, no right to complain. And then we're taught midterms are kind of important. And then we're taught local, if you show up, great. If not, okay. Should be the complete other way around. Like complete voting. And I'm not saying corruption can't happen in local politics. Of course it can, and it does every day. But there's a lot more transparency, comparatively speaking, a lot more. And it just matters so much when you show up at your city hall about something going on in your community. That's just so much. You really do have power there. There really is citizen power. And, when you have an initiative on your local ballot and you show up and you vote for it, that's where your vote is the most meaningful.
Absolutely. I mean, at the local level, a lot of people are going, exactly as I mentioned, going to city councils because they feel they can make a true impact there. And I think that that's more likely to make an impact in the in the short term, because we can clearly see, like, say in the convention that's being organized by the Democratic Party for Biden, their team, they've clearly been focusing on, thinking, anticipating about how Trump could respond to whatever it is that they say, instead of focusing on a real program that could meet the urgent needs of the people. So it's in a very real sense, the script that the Democrats are putting out there, certainly at the national level and through their convention that they had, it was dictated by the fear of what the White House would say. So that's just unacceptable. And that's why we as the people need to act in the ways that are available to us, such as by engaging in local struggles and certainly going to local governments. And hopefully, and we have gotten some gains there as the people, and we just got to keep that up.
So since we brought up local, let's go to what happened over the weekend. I want to talk to you about that. Oh, and real quick, the person who gave me the playlist, VM Miller over on Twitter, thank you for that Anarchist Italian music playlist. It is 1 hour of Italian anarchist music. I have no idea what to expect from this. I'm so stoked, though, and I'm going to be listening to it. So thank you for that. And as far as answering Edwin's question really quick, as far as some anarchist theme songs here, I would say there's the obvious Baby I'm an Anarchist by Against Me. That's a fun one, a classic one. There is, of course, I'm a Better Anarchist Than You by David Rovix, or anything from David's catalog in general, I recommend. And then, of course, I recommend the rapper POS and everyone in the Doomtree Collective. So there's a few recommendations to answer your question, Edwin, for a quick Music Monday aside. But Rodolfo, do you have anything? I don't know if you're a music guy or not. I have no idea. You might have like 25 things up your sleeve you're waiting to throw down. I don't know.
Unfortunately, I'm not much of a music guy.
Fair enough.
I embrace the music that thankfully the revolution has plenty of musicians. So
get your news on with Ron. Don't you wanna know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you wanna know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and